The matter of urgent public importance is on the creeping resurgence of military coups in the West African sub-region. The House knows with high apprehension the frightening emerging trend of military coups in the West African sub-region, the most recent being in Burkina Faso, being part of a resurgence of a coup culture in West Africa. Further notes that for the fourth time in only 6 months, coups d'etat have precipitated the transfer of power in West Africa, most recently in Mali with the overthrow of President Ibrahim Keita, in Chad with the takeover of power by the military following the death of President Idriss Deby, in Guinea with the overthrow of President Alpha Condé, and in Burkina Faso a few days ago with the overthrow of President Roch Kabore. Also notes that this illegal takeover of power from democratically elected governments violates several national constitutions, international conventions, and protocols established by multilateral organizations, donors, and development partners. Aware that since Nigeria, the traditional powerhouse in the sub-region, transited from military to civilian governance in 1999, there has been a strong sense that the days of military coups are effectively over, but with this emerging trend, that positive perception is now being reversed with the rather quick successive coups in the aforementioned countries, alarmed that coups subvert political processes, promote tensions and violence, suffocate democratic spaces, suppress basic freedoms, contain civil society, and promote corrupt, undemocratic governance. Convinced that if the trend is not immediately and firmly checked, it could erode the democratic achievements made thus far, distorting the emerging culture of constitutionalism, and promote opportunistic and undemocratic actors in the region and, by extension, the continent. Resolves that the House condemn the coups in the strongest terms possible. 2, urge the federal government to strongly condemn the coups, impose strong sanctions, and mobilize other nations and stakeholders to impose very extensive sanctions. 3, urge civil society organizations across the sub-region and internationally to condemn the coups, support civil society, political parties, and parliaments to work for the immediate restoration of democratic governance in the affected nations. And 4, call on the United Nations and its agencies, as well as the international community at large, to impose total sanctions on those countries where coups have taken place in West Africa. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Herman Himbe from Benue. Mr. Speaker, I am also in tune with the prayers of that motion. It's in order. We should at all times condemn undemocratic means used to take over power wherever it happens. Having said that, I also want to use this opportunity of what has happened in that country to caution against despotic leaders. Though that country witnessed a sitting president who used the power available to him as donated to him by the people to increase for himself a term and was running the 3rd term in office, the people were having a very difficult time. And in the course of that, the military struck. I condemn completely what the military has done, but you must also look at the fact that when that happened, as opposed to what he said is the law in Ghana, where people are encouraged to come out and resist such military incursions into power, the people came out in solidarity with the military. Not because they don't want democratic governance, but more because what they had was far from what they were hoping, what they would ordinarily desire. Democracy, they say, is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. When an individual or a group decide to make that democracy about themselves, for themselves, and to benefit themselves, things like this are bound to happen. So while we condemn this coup overthrow, the military overtakeover of governance in Burkina Faso and elsewhere, we must also ensure to encourage those who are privileged to hold political office to understand that they hold it in trust for the people who put them there and cannot begin to appropriate it as they choose and elongate their stay and make the people's lives miserable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
2-3 years, there have been not less than 10 attempted coups in the West African sub-region. These attempts, even successful ones, clearly go against the current norms in the international system. In many countries in West Africa, and including other parts of Africa, they have had to go to the extent of writing into the Constitution that any attempt to overthrow the Constitution is manifestly illegal and should be resisted by citizens by any means necessary. If you read the Constitution of Ghana, you will find it there. If you find that of Uganda, you will find it there. And I know in South Africa, they also have portions of the Constitution deliberately saying that the Constitution is supreme, cannot be overthrown. But see, some of these military chaps in West Africa have no regard or respect for the Constitution. In Nigeria, so far so good. We manage our contradictions, we manage the fault lines, we try to accommodate our differences while still having very robust political engagements. What we're trying to achieve with this motion, Mr. Speaker, is that we do not want this culture to continue. West Africa has suffered, we are lagging behind in growth and development. You take all the development indices, the Human Development Index established by the UNDP, you find all the countries in West Africa lagging behind others. And part of the problem is the inconsistency in governance. You know, parliaments are suspended, constitutions are suspended. When they come back, they start to learn afresh. There's suffocation of civil society. People cannot speak and enjoy their basic freedoms. There's an attempt to even distort the process of growth because there is no consultation, no debate, no arguments. So we're saying Nigeria, as the powerhouse of West Africa, must continue to take a very strong stand against undemocratic governance. And this House that represents the people must protect the people by ensuring that never again in the history of Nigeria do we have that experience of martial music and somebody telling us what to do. If it continues to spread, the time will come when even parliamentarians like this cannot gather. This place will be hollow. Nobody will be here. And if we don't speak out, Mr. Speaker, history will not forgive us. Our children will not forgive us because they will know at a particular time in history when we were required to speak and act, we were loudly silent. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. So the thrust of your motion and the prayer is basically for national and international condemnation and sanctions. Yes. Okay. Those in favor, please. Oh, sorry. You needed to add something.
I represent Marted Mongunonganze Federal Constituency of Borno State. Mr. Speaker, foreign members, I'm making my contribution against the premise of the fact that the worst form of democracy is far better than a benevolent dictatorship. So as such, we should always strive to jealously guard and protect our hard-earned democracy, especially in the West African sub-region. We have now started witnessing the ugly scenario of military men in uniform usurping power through the instruments of coercion that is given to them in trust for the defense of the territorial integrity of their respective countries, is now used against the people to usurp power illegally and force an undemocratic governance on the people with all its attendant obnoxious and draconian laws that they will subsequently pass to govern the people, laws that are not in consonance with the wishes and aspirations of the people. So against this backdrop, and against the backdrop of what I have said earlier, that the worst form of democracy is better than a benevolent dictatorship. As such, we should jealously guard and protect democracy, and ECOWAS should stand off and condemn in totality and do everything, deploy all its arsenal to protect democracy in the West African sub-region. Thank you.
Godwin Elmelu, and I represent the good people of Anyoche Shimilifera constituency. I'm from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, let me in clear terms join the mover of this motion and others that have spoken to condemn all the military coups we have had in West African region and African continent. Mr. Speaker, while condemning it, it is also a time for us to talk to ourselves, especially the leaders in African continent, because the manner in which the people are suffering, the manner of bad leadership that is pervading the African continent is something that we must look into. While we are against military coup, it is now time for our leaders to live up to expectation. It is now time for our leaders to ensure that the people that they lead, that they are giving the effective, good governance that will mitigate against them having any bad feelings. In as much as we do not, no matter what, accept any military coup, anywhere, anyhow, in any guise. But it's a time for us to assess ourselves, assess our leaders across the African continent. When you go outside the African continent, people make mockery of us. Why? Because in African continent we have all the natural resources that naturally we should not be lacking. We are here. We were here when Dubai started. Today all of us want to visit Dubai. Most people want to buy houses in Dubai. Some want to go to other countries of the world to buy houses or escape, or even trying to get passports, international passport of those countries. Why so? Because of bad leadership that we're experiencing in African continent. So I think that while we condemn the coups that have taken places in all these West African countries, it is also time for our West African Parliament and African Parliament to live up to the expectation of finding a way to reach out to these leaders and draw their attention that the bad leadership that is pervading us is responsible for anybody to think of using gun to come into power. Today, not only in Nigeria, even in Ghana, wherever, the simple thing, food items, is skyrocketing. And the common human beings can no longer afford them. You want to talk about education? It's difficult. I saw in the social media where somebody was lamenting that even the school fees they used to pay before for a little amount of money has just suddenly been increased. And even the way, the manner that families can even come to pay such school fees is difficult. Whereas in most African countries, when we are campaigning, first of the things that we put in front is free education. The moment we win, it's no longer an issue. It will never come in the front burner. When we are campaigning, we make promises that will give quality water, good roads, stable electricity, good healthcare system. In all the African continent, it's no longer like that. Whereas we prefer to go to places like Dubai, Israel, Saudi, name it, for medical check. This must stop. The African Parliament must live up to the expectation to resolve some of these issues. If not checked, we will continue to experience what is happening in West African region. So I think that it is time, and it's a wake-up call for all African countries to ensure that when they want to put a leader, that they remove the issue of what he must give them before they vote, and think of who they can put that will represent their interests and reorganize the country that they all belong to. When that happens, then, of course, there will be no need for anybody in uniform to think of even thinking, not to talk of attempting. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that the blame is on us. I think that it's high time we, people that are representing our people, wake up and do what is needed of us. And for us, the parliament, let us forget about the party that we belong to. But let's think of the people that have voted us into office and ensure that we'll do the right thing to represent their interests. If we do this, then we will have a better African continent. Thank you and God bless.
My name is Onofiok Akpan Luke. By the grace of God, I hold a mandate of the people of Etinan, Nsiribom Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to first appreciate the mover of that motion and to say that it is timely, in the sense that we have seen the benefit of democracy, not only for us as a people in this country, but we've seen the benefit of democracy globally. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is right and trite for us to rise and condemn any act or act of any individual or individuals who will want to or who have truncated democracy in their region. Mr. Speaker, permit me to add that I want to say that this is a time that calls for the role that Nigeria has been playing in the West African sub-region, the role that Nigeria has played in stabilizing democracy in the sub-region. We are aware of the role of Nigeria in Liberia in time past. And again, we are aware of the role of Nigeria presently. Permit me to say that we appreciate this present government, appreciate President Muhammadu Buhari and the entire government for trying to continue to play that role in making sure that democracy in the sub-region is stabilized. But, Mr. Speaker, if we don't see challenges, we might not appreciate what others are doing. And so it is on this note that I want us to equally appreciate the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, but with the support of Mr. President, that he has gone in West African sub-regions, he has gone to Mali, he has been in different countries trying to ensure that there is stability of democracy. And so my position is that I appreciate the effort of President Muhammadu Buhari and appreciate equally the effort of former President Goodluck Jonathan in sacrificing his time, energy to bring the peace which his acceptance of the election, conceding to the election in 2015, has brought to Nigeria and extending that peace to the West African sub-region. And this calls for another role, another burden on his shoulders, that he should continue with what he's doing in West African sub-region. And for us here as a country, we must rise. Thank God that we are in the leadership of ECOWAS Parliament. We must use the platform of the Parliament to condemn every attempt of usurping power, usurping power by the barrels of the gun. Power should be gotten through the ballot box, and we have seen the benefit of getting power through the ballot box, and we must do all that we can to support it. My main plan here, Mr. Speaker, is that President Goodluck Jonathan deserves an accolade and deserves appreciation and commendation for the work he has done in the West African sub-region. That is my position, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Luke. Those in favor of this motion, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it.